of me fondly when we've said goodbye. Remember me once in a while, please promise me you'll try. When you find that once again you long to take your heart back and be free, if you ever find a moment, spare a thought for me.
But I think I love him because of his goodness and the fact that he tries so hard.
Because he's hung around me for so many years and my goodness has rubbed off on him, that attracts these people to me.
He just will never say a harmful word to you. He might disagree with what you're saying. I'm not saying that he doesn't have opinions and feelings about things, but if he does, he says it in such a way that he doesn't harm you.
Well, John is just the model person.
Well, people feel comfortable with him. There's a natural at ease with him that you don't feel around a lot of other people. He's sincere, honest, about one of the smartest people I know. I take his advice. I mean, people really listen to what he says because he's usually right.
Well, I think John is very widely respected and admired in the community. And I don't know that there's many people that have given so much to AIDS and the cause. It's really more than just an illness to him. It really has been his life.
But yeah, no, it's an incredible support system for me. Both my family and my chosen family. I mean, the group of people who are always there for me. They're the foundation, really, of my life.
Well, I'm one of the few people that can really dance with John because he's so tall and his legs are so long. So I was a good dance partner. Maybe that was it. Gosh, I don't know. It was so long ago that it just happened and it clicked. You just know those things with certain people. It's going to be a lifetime.
Debbie and I have been friends for, I guess, 14 years now. So we have a great deal of history together. Much of it very crazy history. But, you know, she's so fun, so entertaining, and, you know, I still, to this day, thoroughly enjoy her personality and her sense of humor. Now that I'm sick, she cries all the time, but, you know, that's something I can get over.
Well, at the time, I was volunteering down at Aid Atlanta. I was part of the practical support program, and John was the, he was the PW Art Coordinator is what it was called then, and he would do intakes for people with AIDS. And so anyway, he was on staff down there, and I was a volunteer, and I just remember seeing him and thinking that he was just this really wonderful person that I wanted to get to know. And so that kind of happened after, you know, he left Aid Atlanta soon after that, and we became friends, and, you know, it's just evolved into a really, really close friendship over the past years.
Well, I lost custody of Chase when he was 7, about 7 years ago, because I'm a lesbian. At the time, I really thought that I was, you know, truth and justice and all that, and I believed in all of that, so I really thought that I would win because I was a better parent. And I lost custody, and then soon after that, the judge called my boss where I worked in Clayton County, and I was effectively pushed out of my job. So I didn't think I would be able to get another job. And then I was speaking at Pride that year about the custody case, and this woman came up to me and said, I work at a place where we have an opening in the social work department. And I thought, oh yeah, right, they're going to hire me. And I ended up getting that job, and John was the person who interviewed me along with the director of that department.
I met John, I guess it was in 1986, and he was the personnel director at Shepherd Spinal Center. And Lee went to work for Shepherd in August of that year. In fact, it was on my birthday she went to work. And she came home. I don't remember how much later this was, but John actually hired Lee. And so it might have been immediately. She came home telling me about this wonderful gay man that had hired her.
Lee has been there for me 100%. Her and Chris have been amazing, and how much of their lives they've devoted to me over the past few months. And of course my lover Tim, I mean, he's fantastic, and gets to run all the errands since I can't leave the house. But he's been great. And there have been some real heart-to-heart emotional talks lately that I don't know would have happened per se if I hadn't become ill. And then there's a lot of other people. I mean, there's Keith and Julie and just a lot of important people in my life who do everything they can to make it easier for me to deal with this. So I'm real fortunate in that regard. In my speech, I described them as the foundation of my life, and it's the rainbow of my life also. And that really sums it up. I mean, they're a bright spot. I have no fears about ever being alone or not having somebody to help me or take care of me. And that's a real easy feeling. I mean, it's a real good feeling. It makes a difference.
I continue to believe that on some level I have survived having AIDS and that I have never given control of my life to this virus. The energy that I've had as an activist has always been a group effort. It's become clear to me during my recent illness and involuntary home confinement that a circle of people surrounds me with their unconditional love and support. My partner Tim, the love of my life, my mom and sisters, and Chris, Debbie, Julie, Keith, and Lee, and others are my foundation. Their love is the rainbow of my life, and I'm blessed by their presence. Thank you.
The main reason I went to nursing school was that desire to do something that was more enjoyable or more important to me. I'd been doing a desk job for like 10 years as a personnel director at a local hospital. And as part of my own experiences around AIDS, both the volunteer stuff as well as my own diagnosis, the big lesson in all that for me was to be happy and to do things you want to do and that you enjoy. So that's what kind of prompted me to go back to nursing school.
I remember going to, this was back in '87, early '87. And I had been working at a law firm and had been, struggling to come out, be more out, and had not been involved in any gay, lesbian stuff or any HIV stuff. And decided maybe it was time for me to sort of check that out as part of my own coming out kind of thing. And I went to a meeting, a planning meeting for the March on Washington. And I don't remember a lot about it. I think maybe it was at the YWCA on North Highland. And I remember that MP Schildmeyer was chairing that meeting. And I didn't know anybody at the time. I'd not met any of these activists. Like I said, I was just new off the street. And John was there with another young man whom I don't know. And I noticed him when he came in, because John's striking looking, you know, he's so blonde and tall. And during the meeting, he stood up to make some announcement, and he identified himself as being with the National Association of People with AIDS.
I think actually the reason that we got to know each other at all was more because I had started spending time with the people who were in the NAPWA office on a daily basis. Arthur Paquette and Stebo especially, I remember being there a lot, and of course Kurt and Kurt Ron. And so we would talk a lot back and forth about just the issues of the day and what was going on, but John, of course, had a full-time job. He was working over at Shepherd Spinal Center then, so he wasn't so much there during the day. But it was through those people that I met John and started becoming friends, and especially it was him and Kurt that were involved in hiring me at NAPWA for that first full-time position.
He was very interested in the concept of self-empowerment and very much interested in what a patient-based organization could provide, and started also doing a lot of volunteer work with NAPWA, and ended up being the president of the board.
Wow, you know, this is a person with HIV, and you know, and he looked healthy, he looked good, and I kept looking in his face. I know this sounds weird, but I kept looking in his face trying to see a person with AIDS, you know, and I couldn't figure it out. I mean, and it just really so affected me that here was somebody in the same room identifying, standing up and saying this, and I had never seen anything like that in my life. And I remember being so impressed that he spoke just very normally and forcefully. And, you know, at that time I was thinking, oh, well, a person with AIDS, first of all, why would they stand up and say it? And, you know, and he did, and it just stuck with me so long. To the point where now I identify that as a real turning point for me, of going to that meeting a person with AIDS, and then later, of course, going to that march, which I think changed so many people's lives, that those things coming together changed what I did, changed, you know, I became, you know, what I do today, working with AIDS every day for years. And so that's when I first knew who John was.
I saw him being arrested that day. I wasn't a member of one of the affinity groups that were arrested, but I was a support team. I was part of a support team for one of those groups, the group that Michael Hardwick was in.
Free John now! Let's take Jill! 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 Free John now!
Just down here because this is ludicrous what the state of Georgia is doing, and it's very important that all people realize that what is happening in Georgia could set a precedent for the way TB cases are treated in the future throughout the country. And we are really trying to press upon the people inside this building that they do not have the medical evidence that allows them to take away the sort of personal freedom that they have. We realize that TB, because of its infectiousness, has to be treated differently than AIDS. We acknowledge that, and we respect that, and we respect the fact that respiratory isolation in some cases is called for, but not in the instance of a compliant patient and not in the case of a non-infectious patient. And we stand by our conviction that John Kappers is not infectious, and people that are in John's position should not be treated the way he has been.
1, 2, 3, 4. Let John Kappers out his door. 5, 6, 7, 8. We will not put up with hate. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let John Kappers out his door. 5, 6, 7, 8. We will not put up with hate. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let John Kappers out his door. 5, 6, 7, 8. We will not put up with hate. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Basically what we're willing to do is John Cappers has lost all freedom. He hasn't been free. He can't leave his house for the last 3 weeks. I'm willing to lose my freedom for a few hours if John Cappers can't be free for the last 3 weeks. In fact, they want to keep him confined until he dies. My losing my freedom for a few hours is nothing compared to that.
You know, of course, when I was initially diagnosed in December, I was in a stage where I was infectious. So I needed to wear a mask, and my friends wore masks. It's a very confining thing to wear. It's thicker than usual and heavy, and it gets kind of claustrophobic, and it irritates the cough to have a mask on. But then 6 weeks, I think it was about 6 weeks later, my sputum smears, which are the guide to tell whether you're infectious or not. I had 3 negative smears. Dr. Rossi did as most providers would do. She stopped isolation because I was no longer infectious.
He had MDR-TB, and that even though Dr. Rossi had told him he was no longer contagious, that the DeKalb Health Department had come out and told him that he was not to leave his home. And that he believed that that was a violation of his rights, and that he wanted to talk to me about that.
I took John to the doctor that day and was sitting in the waiting room, and he came out and he was wearing, or I actually looked back through the window and I saw him wearing a mask, and you know, I didn't really know what that meant. And he walked out of the waiting room and he just kind of laughed and he said, like, hooty hoot, let's go. And so I got it and I thought, well, it's obviously not so bad. And kind of just went out and got in the car and started the car, and I looked over at him and I said, well, what did she say? And he just like broke down crying and says, I have TB. And John is not a very emotional person, and I haven't really ever seen him express a lot of emotions. And when he started crying, I just lost it.
Right, I mean, because John is articulate and intelligent and educated about things, and he's willing to take a stand, whereas somebody else might have not had the resources John did to fight them and think, oh, well, the doctors know best. And, I mean, John doesn't lie down and take things.
So, after that, obviously we wanted to pursue it in the courts through appeals, and we did. But that all took a lot of time, and in the meantime, we were all very concerned about how long is this going to take, and we need to get John free, and we knew that the decision to confine him was political.
He did an interview with Southern Voice, and he got people involved and made an issue, and in doing that, he knew that was a conscious choice. It was a conscious choice to make a decision to change this policy and not just go away.
John is the kind of person that is kind of the steady backboard of which all the other players who are flashes in the pan kind of come up against, and he helps provide stability in whatever situation he's in. He's always been very good at compromise, very good at negotiating, very good at being sensitive to the people around him, and yet sticking by what he believed.
I obviously have become an activist. I would not consider myself an activist, and this was a big step for me to take, to do this, to stand out in the street. And I mean, I had very mixed emotions about doing it, but I definitely felt the support of all the people that were on the street cheering. And when I was there, I felt like I was doing the right thing, especially when John's mother came up to me and said, "You really are doing. I'm very proud of you for being out here." And John wanted me to do this.
Arrest the real criminals! 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 Arrest John! Free John!
You know, I think civil disobedience, there's a negative connotation to that, but I mean, to me it's a very effective tool. I mean, it was one of the bases of the civil rights movement. And it's just a statement of anger and frustration, and that there's no progress or movement on this issue. So I think it's vitally important to do things like that.
I was really struck by his parents, his mother and his family coming, and that really moved me, to know that he had that kind of family who would, go out and do something like that I'm sure they're not used to doing, and that they loved him that much was really incredible to me.
I mean, he's just so lucky all around. His family's so supportive. They're behind him, 100%.
So they have really taken the biggest part of my life. And I said, if I had 5 years to live, or if I had 1 day to live, I would take that 5 years and live 1 day if I could just get him out where he could enjoy the rest of his life.
I mean, I met and dated some nice people during that time, but was beginning to believe that, that I just needed to be alone with my friends, and then Timmy came along. Kill me for saying Timmy.
I was getting ready to give a speech on stage, and he was very nervous. And I was sitting there just talking to him, and I had been captivated by him for a few months now already. And he told me he was very nervous, and I said, well, if you go up there and do really well, I'll give you a kiss when you get back. And I'm just really kind of joking about it. And he went up and he gave a speech, and I was very moved by it, and I just was very empowered by him. He was one, it impressed me very much. And he came back, and we were sitting there, and he goes, well, I want my kiss now. I said, okay.
That was actually at Gay Pride a year or two before we left for New York. He was there with a friend who's now gone, Bert. And he and Bert were best friends, and Keith and I were best friends, and Keith and Bert were a couple. So, and Tim was breaking up with his lover, and I was giving a speech at the Gay Pride rally. And so I barely knew him. And he was hanging around, and, I was talking to him about how nervous I was and how I hate public speaking, da-da-da. And he said, well, if you do well, I'll give you a kiss when you get done. So that was kind of... So I did well, apparently. And that was the beginning of the romance.
And I was just really excited to find somebody like John with like such a zest for life, and handsome, intelligent. Really, he was like my equal, somebody, and I had not really had a wonderful and successful relationship up to this point, and I was 31 years old, and I thought that this was missing in my life. I'd had everything else I wanted, and when he came along, I never thought about him being HIV positive, what the ramifications, what that really meant. I was just in love. Infatuated first, and lust and love, and everything that went along with it.
Well, it just was really, really sweet, and I mean, they just really immediately seemed to love each other a lot, and so it was good for both of them. I had never at that time been around John when he was in a relationship. John's always had a lot of friends, but I'd never been around him when he was really seeing anybody, and so they just hit it off really well, and it was something I think all of us were really supportive of.
And I remember the first time I met Tim, they had a party over here, and I thought, I don't like him. He's just not good enough for John. And I was just, and then, I mean, obviously they were still dating, and I didn't really say that to John either. And I was really glad that John was with somebody that he really liked, and I very quickly, got to know Tim better and liked him a lot more. But my initial impression was, they're really different.
John always had cookouts and parties a lot, and he'd always have one on the 4th of July. We went over there almost every 4th of July. And so we were at this party, and we were at Lee and I were sitting, I remember, on the front porch, you know, eating and visiting, talking to different people. And this is the first time I remember seeing Tim. And Tim and John came out on the front porch, and they went and they sat in the swing, you know, this on the porch. And I mean, Tim was just flirting big time with John. It was real obvious that Tim was interested in John. And Lee and I, we didn't talk about it at the time because we were within ear range, but when we got home, we were just, you know, dishing Tim terribly, and we didn't even really know him, but saying that we were just sure he was not good enough for John. He wasn't lover material for John. And I think the only reason for that is we didn't think anybody was good enough.
Over all the years that we've been friends and stuff, I mean, John's dated and this and that. Most of them didn't like me, you know, because I was such a big part of his life and stuff. But it's just like and we'd always talked about, like, if he did find a life partner and stuff, you know, where I would fit in, and it, you know, it was real important to us that we all get along and stuff like that. And he couldn't have made, I mean, the choice couldn't have been better for both of them, I don't think, because it's worked out real well. And I couldn't be more pleased for him, because he's really been happy these past 5 years now. And Tim's really impressed me.
I may have had a different opinion because I was immediately struck that Tim was a great man and totally in love with John. That, from the moment I met him, that was my impression. So I kind of got the feeling that his other friend may have thought, well, this guy's he's not like us. And Tim spends his life, or his career is different than a lot of John's friends' careers. I mean, he's a businessman. So I think that's unusual in our circles. Not necessarily in others, but in ours, yeah.
You know, if anything, I worry more about him than I do me. I mean, I worry about how I'll transition or how I'll leave, but I really worry what that's going to do to him. I mean, I know how the losses have affected me, and I've never lost a lover to this, but you know, and my friends too, it's the strangest thing. Sometimes when I look into their eyes, I see this intense pain coming back. And they're sometimes critical of me because I want to protect them, and you know, rather than I don't want anybody to be hurt, I don't want them to be upset. With one friend, I have a no-cry rule. I haven't attempted that with Debbie because it'd be totally useless. It doesn't take much for Debbie to cry. So I'm very lucky in a lot of ways.
I mean, sometimes you feel guilty going out and having a good time.
I try real hard not to make him feel guilty about going out and doing stuff. But it's important for him to do that. Yeah, I mean, it's about losses, definitely. I mean, the things I enjoyed, and one of the major things we did together for many years was go work out together. And I can't do that anymore. And the working in the yard was another big hobby, and now because of the neuropathy, that's real difficult to do. And the pottery, I didn't sign up for it again because I was on quarantine when the class came up. So it's, you know, at first the disability was real beneficial. You know, it was like doing all kinds of things I enjoyed. But as I get sicker, it's not as enjoyable. I mean, I, you know, don't have the things to keep me busy that I enjoyed before.
I think it's very hard. The thing that I've gotten from all this is very hard to watch somebody self-deteriorate. And that from a point of 5 years ago of us, there's lots of things that we can't do. I mean, our lives have changed.
I still believe that some people will survive this disease or survive HIV infection. By me accepting that I probably won't doesn't mean that I don't give up on the long-term survivor stuff. I think that's still real important.
I spent some energy in like, how can he make it so it'll be less painful. And I think I came to the conclusion that you just can't do it. You just have to, it's going to be painful and you're just going to have to deal with it. There's a pill you can take to make it go away or make you feel better. And it's permanent. When somebody leaves, it's not like getting the flu or feeling bad for a few days. It's a permanent loss. You're not going to see them again. So I think that makes it a little different, a different kind of pain.
Eric's setting the dog. She's getting teary-eyed.
Not the only one.
And I find it more difficult to maintain a positive attitude. I mean, for 10 years, I was real positive about my prognosis and did everything I wanted to do. It's just real different when you don't feel well. I mean, when you don't have the energy, it really impacts your life, no matter how hard you try not to let it impact your life. That's what felt so good for me all those years was, doing whatever I wanted to do regardless of HIV. I mean, it didn't keep me from going to school, from moving to New York, from learning how to do pottery. I mean, it never limited my life.
Myself, Debbie, Alice, and Terry, and with some help from Jeff, managed to get John in his wheelchair down all of these steps to the house and out on the road and down the street a little ways to the ramp, and finally actually got him out on the beach in his wheelchair. The whole time we're pushing him in his wheelchair, and we got him a little ways out into the water so he could put his feet in the water, and he really liked that, and he said that really felt good.
But yeah, we've talked a little bit about it. I mean, I want to stay home. I don't want to be in a strange hospital with strange people around me. I'd rather be here with him and friends and the dogs in my own place. And that I don't want any aggressive kind of therapy if I get real sick. I just want to be kept comfortable, and that's the main priority when I get that sick. So, for me, as someone who taught the long-term survivor philosophy for so long, it's difficult to talk about that or even think about it because it's it doesn't fit with that philosophy of long-term survivors. But at the same time, I want to be realistic. I have 24 T cells and a major OI. That. It's much harder to get into that perspective if that's what's going on with you.
I don't know what,
We have cleared off the table, the leftovers saved, washed the dishes and put them away. I have told you a story and tucked you in tight at the end of your knockabout day. As the moon sets its sail to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea. Well, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. You can be anybody that you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends around. You can choose one special one. And the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're gone.
Some girls grow up strong and bold. Some boys are quiet and kind.
Some race on ahead, some follow behind.
Some grow in their own space and time.
Some women love women, and some men love men. Some raise children, and some never do.
You can dream of a day never reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts or games, but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they will give the same back to you. You can be anybody that you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends around. You can choose one special one. And the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're gone.
Oh, the love you leave behind when you're gone.
No complaints and no regrets. I still believe in chasing dreams and placing bets. But I have learned that all you give is all you get. So give it all you've got. I had my share. I drank my fill. And even though I'm satisfied, I'm hungry still to see what's down another road beyond the hill, and do it all again. So here's to life and every joy it brings. So here's to life, to dreamers and their dreams. Funny how the time just flies, how love can go from warm hellos to sad goodbyes, and leave you with the memories you've memorized to keep your winters warm. For there's no yes in yesterday.